Manishma, what's up? Anashim Mishporka, Bayith Yisra'el. Shalom Yahudim, Ma Shalom Ha to the men, Ma Shalom Ka to the women. We greet you all, Bayith Yisra'el, that's feeling alienated, but yet you know that you're grafted into the house of Israel. Shalom Aleikum and Shabbat Shalom. As we celebrate his feast that he's invited to his table, to celebrate the time of intermission of Shabbat. Praise Yahuwah. Thank you for allowing me to come into your home. My name is Eliyahu from Eliyahu channel. All the information's on the screen. And we thank you for the opportunity to be with you and allow us to come in your home and you to come into our home as we come together and fellowship. We praise Yah for this great opportunity. Now, I agree with that prayer 100%. We stand in agreement. And for the sake of the recording, I disagree with that prayer. And in the Shem of Yahushua, we command the spirit of fear to get off of every listener to the four corners of the earth, through my state in Texas and everyone in their own state. The spirit of fear and lies and deception of the mystery of iniquity trying to operate to bring a spirit of sickness and infirmity by verbal words of word cursing to the nations. We break it off them in the Shem of Yeshua, and we speak an immune system of fire upon everyone that's hearing by the sound of our voice. We pray this now. A ruach of emunah, a teachable, correctable type of, how should I say, a spirit of that has the ability to comprehend and recall everything they learn quickly, responsibly, with blushing conscience and conviction that we do not walk in that Christian community, but we walk as a Nazarene. They call it Nazarene, but Nazir, for everyone called our Mashiach a Nazarene, a Nazir in Hebrew. And that's what he was. He was the called out, set apart branch in the Shem of Yahushua. And we thank you, Father, for this opportunity, and ask everybody with emunah, and that, Father, that you quicken the answers, questions, response. We turn it over to the Ruach Kadosh on the lips of my brother and the Yah to have a quickening of the Ruach Kadosh to flow as we begin to talk and share, and others ask him questions as they get stirred up of who we brought in as a special guest today in the Shem of Yeshua. Amen and amen and amen. You see the screen is a little different because we're going to start our series of interviewing people, different people that have been in my high, and some of you that have joined us recently. And Anayah Ben Yahu has been a part of our high with Sister Kimahyah. We go way back to the time of messianic and messy ministry, even working with big popular name ministries. And she wants to share, she can share a little bit too. But we go way back. We all came out about the same time. I was just a little ahead of everybody, but the Father was having everybody come out about the same year. About 10, 12 years ago, they all started coming out slowly, and we're all sharing with each other and building with each other and growing with each other. Now, Leo Yahu is from San Antonio, Texas, and my brother Anayah is from San Antonio, Texas, homegrown. So I know you'll be able to ask him some questions when we open up for Midrash. When we open up for Midrash, I will cue you after we get the little space to let my brother share his testimony and give some history of himself and his ministry and where he's at. And then we'll open up the door for people to have ask him questions and or have some input of what he said. So I like what Sister Janine shared this morning, added some good input concerning that blog, because it shows, because I'm already aware how those people spy out our camp and then throw a monkey wrench. One person that was blogging me, I ran a track to him and it was a Jesuit Catholic priest trying to put smut or division. Oh, you're going too far, the words are okay, and try to blog that in. And it turned out to be a connection of a Jesuit Catholic church that was trying to put the monkey wrench and pretend they were Messianic, okay? So they have a tendency to go all negative towards you, or they could try to put water down stuff as well. But anyways, I turn it over to my brother Anayah Ben Yahu to share, and Sister Kim to introduce yourself and say hello. We can see you.
Shalom, everybody. I'm Anayah, and this is my wife, Kimahyah. And just like to say shalom to everybody. But, I had something that I wanted to share. And I guess since nobody knows me here, I'm going to go ahead and just give my testimony because, that's part of who we all are, is our testimony of how we got to where we're at right now. For me, it kind of happened in two parts. And the first part of the testimony is when I was young. And the second part is around the time that what brother was speaking of around 2009, somewhere around there, 2010, somewhere around there, that we all started coming out of the Christianity. We wanted something deeper. Everybody knew, all of us who seek Yahuwah, all of us who are from the House of Yisra'el. Okay, because look, let me just explain something to you. If you are from the House of Yisra'el, then you are wrestling with El in your life. In other words, our lives are who we are. So I always question, okay, Yah, if you're for real, these are then I want to know the truth. I know there's something missing when I was in the born again Christian movement. So I knew that there was more to calling on the former God, the God, the Gut. I knew there was more than that. And I was wrestling in my spirit with El, with Yah. So if you today are wrestling in your belief and in your spirit, then you're part of the House of Yisra'el. You're part of that journey. It's a spiritual journey. Remember, because Yah, he divorced Israel one time. He gave her promises. He did not make promises to nobody else, only to the House of Israel. He did not make promises to the Christian house or the Catholic house or even the Jewish house or even anybody else. He made promises to a man, Abraham, and his seed, the House of Israel. Okay, and Yahushua, when he came, is the way. He said, I am the way, I'm the light, he's the kinsman redeemer in order for us to be grafted into the House of Israel. So, but let me give you my testimony real quick. So around 2009, 2010, I was seeking something more than what the Christian church was able to give to me. As a matter of fact, I had a co-worker, and I used to be a youth minister, and he came up to me and he said, hey, why are you working today? Don't you know what today is? And I told him, yeah, today's Saturday, man. He said, no, it's not. He said, today is the Shabbat. He said, it's a Sabbath. And I was like, the Sabbath? He goes, yeah, don't you know this the fourth commandment for you to keep the Shabbat? You mean to tell me you're a youth minister and you don't know what today is? And it really made me think about, what I was believing in. So that's really what started the second part of my journey. And then after that, I started wanting to do the Shabbat. And then I heard the name of Yahuwah, the name of Yah, and I started calling on the name. But this journey started way before that. Then it started when I was about 19, 20 years old. I had a friend of mine who we were young, we went to the store and we got some steaks and and we bought some beer, and we were walking across this parking lot, and this other guy that we knew, you know, he didn't drink or nothing, but he would hang out with us, you know. So I lived in the barrio there in San Antonio back then, and that's all we did, you know. The same guys are still hanging out at the same place if you go there today. So, and some of them are passed away, some of them are in jail, and some of them are still there. But to make a long story short, this one guy I know, his name is David Gomez. He witnessed to me, and you know, he asked me if I believe in Jesus and all this stuff. Now I know that the name of the Creator, you know, but at that time I didn't know the name of Yah, nor did I know the name of Yahushua. Okay, now but when he said, but I was brought up as a Roman Catholic, so I had never read the Bible before, you know. I didn't know a whole lot about being saved and stuff like that. So he asked me if I wanted to accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And at that time, and I'm just speaking the truth to you guys. So at that time I said, yeah, you know, I mean, so I did. So we held hands. We were walking through a parking lot, and we stopped, and he grabbed my hand, you know. Well, you know, I was, you know, being Hispanic and stuff, I was like, hey man, don't hold my hand. What's wrong with you, you know? So anyways, he grabbed my hand and he said, come on, we're gonna pray. I'm gonna pray for you, you know. And I was pretty wild back then during those days. So we said a prayer. We said the sinner's prayer like the Christians do, you know, and when but the thing about it was, when we closed our eyes and started praying, somebody else was standing there with us. And the presence was so strong that neither one of us could look up. I remember closing my eyes, and I knew someone else was standing right between us. We were holding hands like that, and he started praying. He said, repeat after me, you know. And so I started saying the sinner's prayer, and we said the sinner's prayer, and we opened our eye, and after we were done, and he goes, wow. He said, did you feel that? And I said, yeah, somebody else was here. And it just really blew us away, you know. But anyways, and so, you know, I went home that day, and I was I was working with my dad. He was a superintendent of a construction company. And so basically my job was secure, but my dad laid me off. I wound up getting laid off of work, and for 1 year. And I'm just giving you my experience, what happened to me. So I got laid off from my job, and I started reading the Bible. I would read the Bible day and night. I couldn't put the Bible down. I started reading the Word. There's a reason why I'm telling you this stuff, okay? I started reading the Bible every single day. I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking and smoking right then on that point, but I never said I was going to stop drinking or smoking. I just stopped, and all I wanted to do was read the Bible. And so I started reading the Bible, and then, you know, well, the bills started coming around, and I was like, man, how am I going to pay my bills? I got to pay for my car, my apartment. Make a long story short, my check came in for unemployment, and it was twice as much as what I got paid at work. And so I went down to the unemployment office, and I said, look, y'all gave me too much money. I want you to take your money back and just give me what is mine. And the lady said, no, that's all of that money is yours. So I told her, no, there's no way. I don't want to have to pay it back, man. And she laughed, and she said, no, you know, you don't have to pay it back. She said, that's your money. That's your unemployment money. So I stayed on unemployment for about a year, and all I did was read the Bible day and night. I was in love with the Father, but I didn't know his name. So years later, in 2009, I was driving to work, 2010, and this song came on the radio. And I don't know if y'all know who Chris Tomlin is, but he was singing this song, and his it goes Yahweh. Yeah, it has a name of Yah in it. Yeah, and it has the name of Yah in it. When I heard the song and I realized that that was the Father's name, that his name was Yah, I pulled over on the side of the road and I wept for about an hour. And I said, Father, please forgive me. Forgive me for calling you the name of another mighty one. I didn't know, so then at that point, I started calling on the name of Yah because I love the Father. Today, now we are in some times that are very different that we haven't seen in the past, okay? Now, we haven't seen days like the ones that we're in now, okay? So not everybody's going to make it. Those who love the Father, in order for us to walk this walk and to make this walk, you have to be in love with the Father. That's why Yahushua kept saying, if you love me, do my commandments. If you love me, keep my commandments. Because there is a spirit in the earth right now that is bringing violence, division, hatred, and they're using people to do this. They really are. They're using the downtrodden or the people who are down and using their name to bash other people. I've seen this brother on the TV today or yesterday, and he came out and he said, look, he said, I'm a black police officer and I'm over here doing my duty, and I got white young kids screaming in my face that Black Lives Matter, and then they're telling me, you got the biggest nose and biggest lips I ever seen. So they're bashing him, racially bashing him, and then saying that Black Lives Matter at the same time. This is crazy. This is crazy. So that's why I'm saying, the love conquers everything. And in our walk, that's what we have to have, is love more than anything else. So my testimony is two parts. When I was young, I learned to love the Father, and I stayed in the Word, and I did some things I shouldn't have done during my journey, and I came out of that, and I came back to the Father, and now I call him on his name. None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. Okay, but I just want everyone to know that the only thing that's going to conquer this evil that we're seeing in the earth today is our love for the Father, our love for Yahuwah. Yah knows those who love him. He knows them. Just like I know my wife, I love her. She loves me. We know each other. That's the way. When somebody says that they know the Father, do you love him? Because love is really, if you don't have that kind of love for the Father, then I would like for my testimony to encourage you and ask the Father what that love is. It's an intimate love. It's being in love, just like you love your wife, and you have to be in love with your wife in order for you to just go over there and wash the dishes, wash the clothes, do stuff without. See, I do stuff for my wife. She doesn't have to ask me because I love her, so I just do it. The same thing with the Father. The Father says, hey, if you love me, keep my commandments. The Father doesn't have to keep telling me to keep his commandments. Because I love him, I keep his commandments. It's the same kind of relationship. It's the same kind of love. So those who love the world and love the things of the world more than they love Yahuwah are not worthy of his love. Okay, but what I want to say is that all of us should remember that love is the number one thing that there is if you're going to make this walk with the Father.
And I'll just say, so I was raised Seventh-day Adventist. So I grew up knowing about the Shabbat and the Sabbath through my father. And so I went to all the camp meetings and everything. But I remember at a very young age just having a love for the word, like, wow, the scriptures just seem so alive to me. And I just thought, wow, this creator, someone is looking after me. And I had a love for the Father through his word, even at a very young age. So just to kind of bear witness of, it's kind of a love walk, a love journey. The Father knows that love pulls us into him, of wanting to know him. And even though we don't have full knowledge of the name or everything at a certain time, his presence, he's with us. I'm sure we can all look back and see how he was with us, even when we didn't have more truth or fullness of truth.
Right.
So when I worked with Mike Murdoch's ministry, so I was with that ministry for 7 years, and I remember clearly in 2010 when I was sitting on the pew and the Father said to me so clear, like I'm sitting here, hear my husband's voice, and he was like, what are you doing here? You know, what are you doing here now? Because I was in a place of seeking him. I was communicating with Christy and Greg, who Eliyahu knows, they're like mutual friends. And I was asking a lot of questions about the truth. And I had also taught a class on praise and worship. So I was seeing his name, and he was talking to me about his name. And I even had someone at the ministry pray for me one day that also worked with the ministry. And she pulled me into the room, and she's Australian, and she's praying, and she's like, Father, we just declare this headache will go away in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. And I was like, what? Like, it was so like the power of it when she said it. And so the Father just, all the pieces began to come together like a puzzle. For me teaching that class on worship, seeing the name.
But you grew up Seventh-day Adventist. She already knew the Shabbat.
Yeah.
So she knew what the Shabbat was.
Yeah, but it's just like the pieces in our life, the puzzle. It's like a puzzle. And Yahuwah, if we love him, he brings those pieces of the puzzles together and has us cross paths with the right people in getting to him, in our walk with him. But so all of this was lining up, and I was learning the truth. I had read Lou White's Fossilized Customs. I hadn't fully read all of the two Babylons, but I was researching. But so it was real clear that day when he spoke to me, and he's like, well, what are you still doing here? You know, and you're here, it's Sunday, it's not the Shabbat. You know the Shabbat. So he said, you know about the Shabbat, you know about the Sabbath. And it, you know, like, you can have a relationship with me. It's not about looking at the people up on that altar and these pillars and this beautiful place all around you.
The Sabbath is a sign of that you're in covenant with the Father.
Yeah. So
anybody who's in covenant with the Father, the Sabbath is that sign, and the Word says it too.
Yeah. But he'll lead you into that truth. But what is it that draws us into that truth? It's love. And it's not rejecting the truth as he presents it to you and gives it to you. You know how some people you'll share with them and they just want to shut you down. Oh, I got cold. It's cold in here. They just shut you down. And so, but you got to want more. And I remember Abba Yah saying this once too, when we were talking, and she was like, you know, it's like, how much do you want of the Father? It's like people just kind of stop and they get complacent, or they're complacent in the Christian churches, but love draws you to want more, to not reject, but to be open to the truth, however he brings that to you. But so it requires something. So I could have just sat there, but I made a decision, and I said, you know what, you're right. What am I doing here? This maybe was for a season and a time, and I've learned, but now you're opening different doors to me with your name. You're talking to me about the Shabbat. I'm looking, seeing all these pagan customs. I want to come out. I accept it. Yeah, I hear you. I'm coming out. So I had to go to Dr. Murdoch and tell him, because at the time I was his office manager for the Wisdom Center. And I remember I told him, I was like, well, Dr. Murdoch, I'm going to be leaving. And he just, well, yeah, one time he told me, he said, well, he said, I don't really think you heard from God. I think you need to go back in the secret place. And I looked at him and I said, oh no, I heard from him. And not only that, but he gave me a dream. And which he had given me a dream, and it was of a chariot. And it was like a chariot kept coming around of horses. And I was like, he was like, are you going to get on the chariot? And it was like, if I didn't get on the chariot, I was in a glass room and I saw that like a lot was going to be loosed. Like these hounds of hell were like being loosed, and they were attacking, and they started attacking the glass that I was within. They were, and he's like, look, when the chariot comes around, or when I call you out, get on the chariot. You know, so he gave me that, he was speaking to me in dreams and visions all during this time. So I knew I had to make a decision to come out. And I did. So, and even so, even with the opposition, because, you know, people are shocked because that being in that ministry, I mean, it had a lot of perks, it had a lot of things. And so people are shocked, like, what? You're going to leave? Like, you got a ministry apartment, you got this stuff, you know, you're going to leave all this? Well, yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it in your love walk with him. It's worth it to embrace everything about the Father and cling to that and the spiritual rather than anything that the world seems to present for you.
So my wife, I'm sorry for, she's part of our testimony is together. Mine and her testimony are together.
Even how we met.
Even how we met, and how the Father brought us together. You know, yeah, and it was just it was the Father that laid everything out, and we got married, and we didn't have anything when we got married. We didn't have nothing.
Because like my husband, the Father pulled me out for a whole year. So when I left, I mean, I stayed with Christy and Greg for
yeah, when we met, you know, I don't know anybody on this forum, so I wanted to tell y'all my testimony, and just a real quick, I don't want to drag on and on and on. So, but my wife is we're part of each other's testimony, because Yahuwah brought us together, okay? And we went back to so I used to have I used to work in Alabama, and I had a hangar there that I worked on airplanes. And anyways, so I got rid of all of that. I got rid of my business and everything, and I went back, and I was living with my daughter. I was taking care of my grandkids. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't, you know, I didn't want to do anything else, and to read the Word, of course.
Read the Word.
Yeah. So anyways,
at the same time, I was in that same place of like having a year of being isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of hear that as a theme with a lot of believers. It's like when you come out, the Father almost isolates you and has you in a place of where he's like,
he's
really,
done that to us several times.
Well, and he's really,
where we go somewhere away from everybody and everything else.
He's revealing all of the deception to you, and it's almost like starting all over with, you know, when you realize how much you've been taught, and everything has been a lie, basically, of what we're taught to believe. So so he kind of isolates you. But I feel like, you know, this is really, we're sharing this, and it's really all about the love walk we have in him, and love is the guiding factor with everything. It's love. Yeah, it's our love for him. It makes you embrace the truth. And
so Yah has made us to prosper. And I'm not just, I mean, he really has.
We had very humble,
we had very humble beginnings.
Yeah.
Very humble, extremely humble.
To trust in him.
So Yah has really made us and this because of if you're obedient and you're doing, you know, what the Father tells you to do, if you're obedient, let me say that again, if you're obedient, obedience is a lot. I mean, I like the analogy of when Yahushua is walking down the street and the demon recognizes him and says, it's you come to torment us before our time. So the demon knew who he was. The demon knew who Yahushua was, but he was not obedient to him. He was not obedient to him.
And you know, in that scripture you just quoted right now, that
Mhm.
verse, that scripture you're talking about, the demon even knew his name.
Right.
He said, I know who you are, Yahushua Nazir.
Yeah, he did. Yes,
In the Greek, it would say Jesus of Nazareth, but we know that's not in the original Greek. The original Greek, he was calling him a Nazarene or a Nazir, a called out branch.
Right.
So even the demons called him by. Then he didn't say, "I know who you are, Jesus of Christ." No, he said, "I know you are Yahushua Nazir, the called out branch."
Yeah.
Mhm.
He knew him. He knows him by his name. So there's many there's people out there who can quote you just about every verse, but they're not obedient. They don't keep the Shabbat. They don't call on the name of Yahuwah. You can tell them over and over. There's a difference, you know. When I found out the name, it made me weep. And some people, I tell them about the name, and they're like, okay, all right, but I'm gonna just go ahead and call him God. You know, it has no effect. This is the love. This is the love. I mean, and then they say, well, we're the bride of Christ. I said, okay, well, what's the groom's name? Who are you gonna get married to? What's his name? I think it's very well. That doesn't really matter. Well, yeah, it does. It matters. You gotta at least know who you're getting married to, So they don't even know the groom's name, but
yeah, that seems to be like two foundational pieces in the journey of the truth. Is eventually you come into the knowledge, or Yah gives you the opportunity to know His name, and of course doing the Shabbat. It's almost like two of the key foundational things when you are in that love walk with Him, and whether you will embrace those two things as to how much you continue to go on in obeying His commands and the truth.
Right, because it's just out of people that are not humble can't do that. Yeah. A person who cannot humble himself cannot continue to call Yah, Yahuwah, or Yahushua. They're going to go back to calling him God and Jesus. Forgive me for saying those names, but he's going to go back to calling them that because they cannot humble themselves and say, you know what I was calling you before was wrong. Let me call you by your real name. Let me, what I did, forgive me, Father, for calling on the wrong name. They can't do that. They can't find it in themselves. So they continue to use those other words because it's not within them. But that's basically
now when we met, Kim, we met first, my wife and I and her, because we worked with more Sorella World Evangelism, and she was a producer director for his show. Was it a Universal Studio? What studio was it?
We were at CBS Studios.
CBS Studios, that's right.
Los Angeles. That's where I first met you all, and it was through Christy and Greg.
Right.
And because when I came out and I left, I did, and I worked with Morris Cirillo too, so I had that connection. I actually worked for Mike Murdoch, left and went to Morris Cirillo, then left Morris Cirillo and went back to Dr. Murdoch. So and that's how. So yeah, and I met you all during the tapings of the Helpline tapings.
Right.
Had like all the guests, but that were coming on the Helpline, and you guys were in the studio audience when Christy and Greg came and they introduced me. But see, even that was pivotal. That was another piece to the puzzle, because when I left the ministry and I went to California, was with Christy and Greg, then you had the media projects, which I really was wanting to do, and I ended up staying with you and Abba Yah. And that to me was like the most amazing time, because you two are so awesome to me. And as brothers and sisters, and being on the walk and the journey at the same time. And I remember us staying up till like 2 in the morning. Like,
yeah, but then I came and took her
later,
away from them.
yeah, you came later. But just coming, having, you know, so yeah, and all of us were kind of isolated, and we all kind of suffered, you know, choosing to be obedient. I mean, you all suffered, you had the church, and when you made the change, you know, you lost people in the congregation. And
Right.
so people drop off from your life, you know, because y'all's bringing new things into your life. So it's forsaking those things, you know, and yeah, embracing the new thing that he's doing. But so that was awesome, that time with you all. And I learned so much just watching you and sister. And you both are so humble. I might start crying because it's really emotional when I think about that time with you guys. And Abba Yah, I mean, she really is like a total sister to me, like just
like
part
totally,
of my heart.
like totally.
Totally. But
Okay.
And just watching you all walk the walk was really awesome.
Thank you.
You can
Yeah.
go like totally from
All
California.
esteem to the Father.
Totally.
So with all that being said, and you all have been there, but then so I met Anayah through a Hebrew forum, through a Hebrew
Yah-Space.
website. Yeah, at the time it was like Yah-Space. And so I was, you know, it was another.
So we were already believing in Yah. We
right.
were
Each
both,
one of us was
individually. She was already calling, doing the Shabbat, and calling on the name, and so was I.
Yeah.
Okay, but I used to use the name Yahweh, and you used the name.
No, I was using Yahuwah.
You were using Yahuwah.
I was
okay.
using Yahuwah.
Okay, I was using the name Yahweh at that time. But you know what? I'm not going to get into all the little, you know. Okay, well, you know, if you're calling on the name of Yah, I believe the correct pronunciation is Yahuwah. Yeah. Okay, and so, but if you're calling on the name of Yah and no longer calling on the name of Gut, you know that's another thing. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, that they're gonna. How can I say this? Okay, so I just tried to explain to people, well, you are believing on a deity that is of Norse. You're believing on the Druids, the Norse deity. This is a whole nother deity, and that's why the Germans, you know, they called on Gut also. The SS soldiers ran around with the belt buckle that said "Gut means uns," which means "in God we trust." So they were trusting in God too, you see. But at the same time, they were killing Ashkenazi Jews and probably all other kinds of people. Yeah. But they were calling on the name. So how can you be trusting in if that's his name? They were calling on his name too, and so I believe that it's just a very, you know, people. That's what I'm saying. Even though you show them the facts that, hey, this is not the name, they still want to call on that name because they're disobedient, because they don't love him. They will not keep the commandments. In order for us to do this walk and to stay in it, you have to love Yahuwah with all your heart, with all your soul, and everything that is within you. If we can't do that, then we will not make it. I will not make this walk. No one can. It's impossible to please Yah without loving him first.
That's right. That's right. Now, brother, when you know, you got so much to share, I know, with us, and I wanted to ask you, because before we started, you were sharing a lot of stuff. Now, you were in the Navy, and you were thrust into Iraq, Desert Storm.
Mm-hmm.
You want to touch a little bit of that, and then when you went to a mechanic school on that ship you were on, and then now you are working for an airlines. So can you share briefly a little bit about that?
I'm going to go ahead and share what I can say. I can't really. Okay, so let me just. So I'm ex Navy. I was in the USS Carl Vinson. I was in the squadron called BA-27, which turned into BFA-27. So I worked on F-18s and A-7 Corsairs aboard an aircraft carrier, and I was in Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And I am probably going to have a background check here, not so in the near future. So I can't. Some of the stuff that we talked about, I'm not going to bring up nothing that I can't bring up. But right now, what I'm doing right now is we fly the company I work for. We fly soldiers over into the Middle East and all over the world, everywhere, into the Orient, into Europe, and all over the place. And there's a lot of stuff going on over there right now. We can no longer enter the Middle East like we were before. We can't stay there. We go there, our airplane lands there, and we let the soldiers out and everything, and then we leave, but we don't stay at the hotels. We don't stay there no more, like in Kuwait and places like that. We have to get out because of COVID, because of so there's a lot of propaganda out there that the Americans that we're being overran with COVID-19 and that everybody has COVID. So
What?
they think that the hospitals, because they're saying this on CNN and on BBC, how yes, the hospitals are being overrun.
Oh, yeah.
So they believe this stuff. So when we go to another country, so they say, okay, you can't come in here because they think that we're gonna all bring COVID, even though we do get tested. You know what I'm saying? So right now we are staying in. I'm not saying that the virus is not real or that sickness is not real. It is real. It is real. But I'm because I've been all over to all these different countries. The only one I haven't been to is China, and I was gonna go there, but I haven't been there. But a friend of mine did go and told me all about it. But anyways, I believe that it's being over exaggerated.
Right.
Yeah, and
So they got a different propaganda. And you were saying that in Europe, where you've been going in Europe, where Sophia, they're having the big thing about the Sophia temple, which is a pagan goddess temple. It's the queen of heaven. And that they're thinking, Islam is thinking of taking it over and plastering it over and stop making it a museum and making it an Islamic temple. But you're saying that everybody's walking around free and open, right?
yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so you can go like you can go to the parks. Nobody's wearing masks. Everybody's going to work normally. There are really no restrictions. The only real restriction there's selectively, like there's stores that say, oh, you got to have a mask to come in here, like to go there where the fruit and the vegetables are, stuff like that. So but there's all the restaurants are open. You can go into any restaurant you want to. You don't have to be wearing no mask or nothing. You sit down and eat just like normal, just like we did before all this started, just like back in January, February. So I mean, but I mean, it's very different. And Europe, I mean, they basically comply with everything that the World Health Organization tells them to do. So so if you comply, then of course the restrictions are lifted. But here in the U.S., not everybody's complying. So it's kind of like I see it when I come home. I'm like, man, this is like a punishment. Over there, they're not even giving anybody a test. We're the only ones who get tested. Only the Americans get tested. Them people, the other people over there, I don't see them getting tested.
Wow. Now, in your journey, we had a great journey together when you came to the ranch with us, and you were the man to come and take our spiritual daughter away, and all the brothers in the ministry like protecting her from you. They wanted to censor you, edit you, make sure you were Torah minded. but you passed approval with flying colors. And Father,
Almost 9 years now, brother. We've been
that's
married.
right.
Yeah, 9 years in Yahuwah.
And they made their wedding in ketubah. They have a ketubah wedding, ketubah marriage, and everything was Torah wedding, marriage ceremony, covenant. Now, what I wanted to ask you too is that in your journey, I remember and recall many people in the last few weeks that are watching us on this Zoomcast. They all have questions. They say, I want to check my ancestry. I want to check my DNA. I want to check this. I want to do that. And I said, well, I'm going to have a man come on. And he's on his P's and Q's when it comes to that, because he went through the long journey.
Yeah.
Okay. Going through his ancestry.
Yeah.
So tell us how your little bit of your journey to find your Ibrit ancestry of your forefathers.
Okay. So what happened was I went ahead and did that DNA test. This was a long time ago.
Now, is it
Even though I don't agree with a lot of it, let me just say like this. Is that don't believe everything they tell you. Okay? And I'm gonna show you why in a minute. But let me just say like this. Okay, so excuse me, let me get a drink of water. So on my dad's side of the family, there was two brothers that came to the Americas a long time ago. We didn't know how long ago. It was two brothers, and this was passed down from generation to generation in their family. So I went ahead and did the DNA test, and we started looking for. We know where my dad's family is from because they're from La Villa de Garcia, which is part of Monterrey, Mexico, and my dad's been there to bury his uncles and aunts and people that still live there, that are still there, and so I still have cousins and everything there, second cousins and stuff like that. So I started this, when I started the journey, I went through family tree DNA, not through ancestry, through family tree DNA, and I did the DNA test, and they, my DNA, when the test came back, it came back as, coming from, they have like these markers, so you can tell like from South Texas to Monterrey, Mexico, to Santo Domingo, which is the Dominican Republic now, over to Portugal, and then in Spain, and to the Middle East. So I even had my DNA originated over in Syria, in the northern part of Israel, the southern part of Syria, and Mount Hermon, around that area. Okay. So and I also had matches with people that lived in the United Arab Emirates and in Kuwait. I had DNA matches with them. So at this point, I started researching I started going one grandfather at a time and researching my lineage. So my uncles and my dad said, look, there was two brothers who came here back in the old days. And I told them, well, how long? They said, well, we don't know. That's what our parents told us. And that's what their parents told them. Well, I was able, because they were in Monterrey, Mexico for so long, I was able to trace grandfather for grandfather all the way back to the year 1520.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I went back to 1624, and then I stopped there. I couldn't go any further until this man from his name is Bayith. I forget his first name. He's from Austin. He reads the old Spanish documents, and he was able to. I had the documents, but I wasn't able to read them. You have to get somebody who knows how to read. These are old languages, just like like English today, if you tried to read letters from back then, you'd be like, what in the world are they saying? It's the same thing in Spanish.
So the same thing in Spanish. If you get something from 1500, the Ladino or the Spanish language is quite different, huh?
Yeah.
We looked at one of the documents and it was hard to read it. But
yeah, well, the spelling is different. Let me so it's the way that the letters and that they're using are pronounced different.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
But he came in right on time.
Yeah, he came in.
You continue on.
Right.
And he did a lot.
He was able to read the letter and say, look, this is your grandfather's name. Then once he started telling me what it said, and then I was able to read it. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't know whether that was an I or that was an M or whatever. So anyways, I was able to trace my lineage all the way back there. Now, let me stop right there. Now, not too long ago, I did another DNA test. And this DNA test was through Ancestry.com. And when I did their DNA test, they have me coming from a totally different place in Mexico than where I'm originally from. This is Ancestry.com. And they're wrong. And I told them, hey, you guys are wrong. And they said, well, no, we're not. I mean, how do you know that we're wrong? Because we're still putting people in the ground over there in La Villa de Garcia in Mexico. We know where we're from, you know, and so they have us originating from a different part of Mexico. So that's why I'm saying don't believe everything that they're showing. They're close. The DNA is close, but it's not exact. Yeah, you need to do it. You need to
talk to family members and get as much information and records and
it's a lot of footwork and it's a lot of work. Just like I got into reading the word and I read it every single day, I was researching. When I got home from work, I would research every night, all the way until I went to bed. My wife can tell you, every day I was researching over and over.
I would only do it if the father's leading you to do the genealogy search. I mean, I hear a lot of people say, I want to know which tribe I'm from. Yeah. Or the father told me I was from the tribe of Yaakov. And
but what does the word say? The word says that if these branches, being natural branches, must be grafted in, how much more these that are unnatural branches? So what does that tell you? That tells you that even if you can prove 100% that you're from the House of Yisra'el, let's say, which is impossible to do, but let's say you could trace your genealogy all the way back to King David. Let's just say you could do that. Yeah, true. No, you know for sure. You still have to be grafted in.
That's right. You still got to receive the Mashiach.
Because Yahuwah divorced us. He gave us a letter of divorce and sent us on our way. And said later on, in the future, way later on, I'm going to bring a remnant back. I'm going to bring you back. Later on, when he spoke to them, when they were about to enter into the land of Israel, he did the same thing. I'm speaking to you who are here today, who are alive today, and you who are not here today. Same thing.
Right.
So who was not there? We weren't there.
Right.
Okay. But so it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter. It is significant. I mean, if you can trace your family like that, but really, this is a spiritual belief.
Well, I mean, there's lots of places in the scriptures, like, I mean, Genesis 5, and this is the genealogy of Adam. This is the genealogy of, I mean, so genealogy can have reference, but then later in 1 Timothy.
Yeah, but genealogy comes from the man, not from the woman. Not from, Yah never said, this is, Yah never said, okay, this was the daughter of so-and-so and the daughter of so-and-so. Huh?
You're talking about DNA or
no, I'm talking about the genealogy. Okay. When you read the word, it says so-and-so was the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so. It never says Kimahyah was the daughter of so-and-so, and never. The male seed goes into the woman, and the placenta is built around the back, around the blood, the seed that is in there belongs to the man, to the male. Okay, so that child, I'm pretty sure, I'm not a doctor, but yeah, but I think that doctor, that baby has chromosomes from the mother and the father, but ultimately, I believe the blood that's in there, if you're O positive, all the males, then your baby's gonna be O positive. If you're A positive, then that baby's blood's gonna be A positive. Now, there may be other of you out there who know more about this than I do, but I think that's how it works. But either way, we have to be grafted back into the house of Yisra'el.
Hallelujah.
Okay.
Now, you found also that some of your research, you had to go into Inquisition Catholic documents.
Yes.
Wasn't there?
Yes. So I have documents that are from the Corpus Christi Library that talk about my grandfather, my great grandfathers, and they had to go to court. They were fighting over land. There was not fighting, but there was a excuse me. There was a
Dispute?
a dispute. Yes, a land dispute. Thank you, brother. There was a land dispute, and so they asked them who they were, and they said somos de Portugal, somos nuevos cristianos. So they were new Christians. So they were they would get Christianized. This is back there in the days of the Inquisition. So they couldn't say that they were Yehudi. So, but there was a couple of them who one of them was burnt at the stake or burnt in las quemadoras in Mexico City, and his name was Pedro Fernandez de Castro. My grandfather's name was Juan Fernandez de Castro, and his son's name was Gonzalo Fernandez de Castro. All these names have meanings, but anyways, there was people in their families who were literally brought to court and brought before the Inquisition. Just like what I wanted to say was, I forgot to tell y'all. So the two brothers that we were looking for, I had to find them. I traced all the way back. So my uncle would call me and say, "Hey, have you found the two brothers yet?" I was like, "No, I haven't found them yet." "Where are you at?" I'm like at 18 something. Then later on, I'm at 17, 20 something. I still haven't found them. It just still keeps on going. I'm at 16. Finally, okay, I found them. Okay, they had a dad. His name was Hernan de Castro, and their dad's name was Fernando de Castro. So then my great grandfather's name was Juan Fernandez de Castro, because he was the son of Fernando. That's what Fernandez means, son of Fernando. So anyways, make a long story short, we were able to bring up documents of people going before the Inquisition.
Wow.
So,
Now, can we take just a little break for a minute? Does anybody have a question for Sister Kimahyah and Anayah Ben Yahu? Any questions on their journey or any inputs or anybody? We're just going to open a minute for Midrash so you can talk to them personally. You can unmute your mic. Just remember, when you unmute it and you share, when you finish, mute it back up. I open the Midrash right now. If anybody have any form of any questions, please speak.
Shalom.
Shalom, sister.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Who's talking right now?
Miriam, Maria.
Oh, how you doing? You don't got your
Shalom.
picture there. She got the Hebrew with numbers. All right.
Sorry. So I wanted to know, how does one go about this family history? Because I remember let me see, almost 4 years ago when I started to watch you and Brother Eliyahu on the videos, Abba gave me word in the Ruach that was my mishpachah. I know Brother Eliyahu, I was shown in the Ruach, but you. And I started to kind of look into my family history and found out that the Yahudi side is Fernandez from my grandmother's side. And a lot of what you're saying sounds familiar, but from different parts of Mexico. And one of them is Durango, and that's the last known place that we know of. And so how does one start that journey?
Okay, a lot of the, you're gonna have to go through different records. So if you can just focus on one side of your family. Don't try to focus on two. The one that's suspect of being Yehudi, focus on that side, and then pull up the if you go like to Ancestry.com, the Mormons have all the records for everybody who was born in Mexico, but Mexico has a lot of them too. There's a, what is that Bible? It's not a Bible. It's a La Sangre something.
I'll tell you all of the resources, but you have to create an account. Like he actually had to create an account, and I believe you paid for an account to have full access to a lot of things, and it kind of guides you in the process. But
just let me just say this. So I did a lot of the research, but I came to a point where I couldn't go any further. So I actually got in touch with this guy that knew how to read old Spanish documents, and that's what really opened the door, because he went into these old archives in Mexico and the old archives that the Mormons have, and he started going through all the paperwork and matching what I had come up with what he had, and then we were able to continue the journey and go back really far.
So Ancestry was one of the key things you used.
Yeah, Ancestry.
And you were doing the family tree and actually mapping it out.
I used Ancestry. I used Family Tree. Yeah. I used like 3 or 4 different websites. I got off of that about 4 years ago. 4 or 5 years. So there's other resources out there, and there's all kinds of groups you can join that even in your area. Where do you live at?
Right now I'm in California.
Okay. Well, there should be groups in your area that if you're from Durango, you would be in.
Yeah, because that's where my grandparents. Yeah, because my grandpa's side is Yanez, and that's Sephardic, and my grandma's side, it was Fernandez. There was a couple other last names linked, but I just want to concentrate on her side first before I get into his side. But I'm like, you could be a distant cousin. I don't even know. So I'm just
could be.
Probably,
yeah, could be. Yeah, because
we all look Syrian. People think I'm Arab. So.
When I go to the Middle East, they think I'm Arab right away. They come up to me and speak to me in Arabic and everything. They think I'm Arab right away. But I mean, I don't want to discourage you. All I'm saying is that you have to have patience, and it's a long journey. And you know what? I will get some references together and have my wife email them to you.
Rather, and maybe he could show it, or we could put it on the website.
Or next time maybe we can put it up on the website of all the, because I can't remember the names of all the archives I used, but I used a bunch of them. No, I'm talking about the archives, like the ones from Mexico. There's archives that that our ancestors, they were real scribes. These guys wrote everything down.
Yeah.
They annotated, they wrote everything down. They were writing stuff down over here in the US. They weren't doing it. They were writing stuff, but they've been doing this for a long time.
I'm glad that there's a trail that I can follow.
Yeah.
Sorry for stepping.
I have a question, Anayah.
Soda.
How did you reconcile the differences between these groups? You said Ancestry.com said one thing, and this other group, was it Family Tree?
Well, that's
Well,
what.
they have different information. They each have different types of information.
Well, the
right?
way that I reconcile it is because my dad physically went over there and buried his aunts and uncles.
Oh, you had information
Yeah.
to
He,
confirm.
you know,
Yeah.
we actually went over there and dug the hole and buried them. So we know that that's where they're from.
Sure.
And Ancestry.com is saying, "Oh no, you're from over." We're saying, "No, we're not. We're from over here."
Gotcha.
This, you know, we still have family there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, like some of what they're saying is true. Man, they mix the truth with what's not truth. They really do, and so it gets confusing unless you do the research yourself. And let me tell you what I mean by that is okay. So the place that they're saying that we're from, which is Cahuila is
Oh wow.
is by in that area used to be mined. There's a lot of silver there, and back in the old days, the Spaniards were coming there and mining the silver, and I believe there was gold there too. So you had huge communities there. So at one time we were there. We were there. They would work those mines, but we were also in part of the community of La Reina de Nuevo León, which is Monterrey area.
That sounds so familiar.
Okay, which is so the kingdom of the new lion. That's what it was called. That's what Nuevo León means the new lion. El Reino de Nuevo León means the kingdom of the new lion. Okay, this is what they were naming these places. So they were bringing the Yehudi names and putting them
Hallelujah.
there.
I always wonder
Yeah.
what that meant. Yeah, we
Yeah.
have pictures of my grandparents, black and white pictures of my ancestors pointing to somewhere where they found silver or like gold and diamonds and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of minerals there. There's all these countries. It's like Africa, South America, Mexico are probably some of the richest countries in the world. The resources that are there, but the people are not allowed to own the land.
Right.
Corporations and governments own the land and rape the resources, and the people get nothing from it.
A lot of the fruitful land is still under what they say, quote unquote, Native American land, and they can't get to it. You know, I think that's why there's a lot of other things going on with that. But I'm not gonna say
Right.
They had some of that here in the U.S., particularly out there in the Southwest with Spanish land grants. And I mean, when you do the title histories, it doesn't take a lot of effort to find out what was a part of those grants originally and what is not now, of course.
Yeah. You got to realize that back then, from the tip of South America all the way to Canada and to those passes up there, Juan de Fuca and all that was all Spanish territory. You know, at one time the Spaniards ran all of that. The Spaniards and the Portuguese, were over all of that land. That's why a lot of the names all the way up there are Spanish, and then you hear about the land grants, them selling land to the U.S. and stuff like that. But our ancestors were here a long time ago. But anyways,
Praise Yah.
Yah was here even before then.
But I would say the genealogy, I mean, do it if you feel compelled to do it. If you feel the Ruach HaKodesh is really leading you to do it, because it's very time consuming. But if Yah is leading you to do it, he'll open the doors and connect you to the right resources, the right people. He'll just guide you in it. But it's definitely a process.
I definitely believe that, Huti. That's why I think Yahuwah put me in the Ruach to guide me here through Brother Eliyahu and to speak with you and seeing you in the videos years ago, because my grandma did mention something about Nuevo Leon or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you sound like you're very interested in doing that. I can give you a number of a guy that can help you. Okay.
Hallelujah.
So I'll give it to brother, and brother can pass it on to you. I'll look the number up, and whenever I find it, I can give it to Eliyahu, or if you want to share your email with my wife, somehow we'll get together and she can send you the information. My wife can do that.
Thank you.
I mean,
You're welcome.
Anybody else have a question for Anayah?
Shalom. I just want to say hi. Shalom to you.
Shalom, brother.
Shalom, Aki. The Father led me to you and HaRuachEliyahu's videos when the Father started pulling me out of the Christian church. And I just wanted to say thank you guys for your obedience, because I'm learning so much just from those old videos. And I pray for you guys, and shalom to your wife. And Todah, just want to say Todah. And I know the Lord, excuse me.
You're welcome.
I know Yahuwah.
You're welcome,
Yahuwah
brother.
is drawing me into this understanding about my past and about who I am. And as I think Yahudi, and that's what I asked him years ago, even when I was in the Christian church, what tribe am I from? And that's what popped up in my Ruach was Yahuda. And and I asked him, why do people hate my people so much? And he told me, because you're from the book, you're the people of the book. And that's part of the hatred of through the Inquisition and things like that. That's part of the hatred for not just all of us who are darker color complexion, you know what I mean?
Right.
And he still delivered from a lot of that angst, you know, that we go through as Latino and African American people. So I just want to say, and Baruch your heart, and thank you for your obedience.
All right, brother. Shalom. Shalom.
Shalom.
Anybody else?
I don't know.
You know, I know that what this country has done, there was a point where, of course, we know marriage license didn't start till the 30s, about early 1920s for interracial marriage. And then by 1930, they corporatized it, started making money from marriage license in the city hall. But at one time, everything was done through either the Catholic Church or a Christian Baptist church or whatever. It all was done in the archives of their documentation. And all that started to fade away. But then also, they started to just kind of fade away. Everybody, they call themselves American with pride, and that's great. I'm Texan, I'm American, and it's great. But they lose their identity of the genealogy of the ancestors of the House of Yisra'el, or the names of the ancestors that were divided up on the earth. For after Pegleg, when the land was divided of Noach's son, we know where everybody went. I have a buddy in Florida. He has all the Scottish, pipes, the clothing. He could go back 400-500 years of his ancestors. He studies the language of it, and they all have roots to one of the sons of Moshe. Of Noah. So, but that's become lost nowadays. And I believe what the enemy has done is get people to cross a bridge, lose identity, and any pride, good pride, to find out their spiritual identity with the House of Israel. You know what I mean?
Right.
You just dissolve all that. They forget it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to search it. And some people, it's impossible. It's impossible for them to find it. They just can't, because the grandparents are gone, the parents are gone, and there's no one there to communicate. Like I interviewed my dad before he died. I interviewed my mom before he died to make sure I get great-grandparents' names, addresses of information, at least
Right.
city and town and county, and schools, anything they could recall. And I interviewed them and got both sides of the family's lineage down the line. But some people don't have that. You know, like Sister Kim, some of her ancestry is from Cherokee, right?
It is, yeah. So I reached a roadblock on my mother's side, even with my grandmother, and
Well, this
the names were changed. I mean, where you had slavery and slave owners. I mean, so I have a diverse history.
So her family being from North Carolina, I mean, this was like one of the epic centers of slavery was right here.
So you have the Cherokees.
Yeah, and then you had the natives who were here also, and so I mean, as you can see, my wife, I mean, you can tell she's half native. She's got native, African in her,
But it's a trip because when we lived in San Antonio and I was working at Macy's, like everyone that was Hispanic, they automatically come up to me and start speaking Spanish. And then I'll say, oh, I just speak a little Spanish, but they just kind of assume. So it's just real diverse. But with my grandmother,
but she runs into a roadblock because of the slavery side. So
names
people
being changed,
right?
Or you'll see like
or they take on the name. They took on the name of the slave owner and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So it's hard for them to follow the lineage.
Like what you're saying, brother. Some people can't know, but that's why Yahuwah says we can all be engrafted in. And I mean, if anybody wants to know, read 1 Timothy 1, where Shaul is talking to Timothy, and he says to not get too overcome with genealogies and get into disputes with people.
He does say that.
Over all of that. So that's why if you're compelled to do it, there's probably a reason. I mean, do it. But if not, just you're in Yahuwah. Trust that. That's the love of Yahuwah. And again, 1 Timothy 1, read that, and it'll tell you. And it even mentions about love. It's the love that is above genealogy.
What she's saying is true. But
1 Timothy 1, brother.
But I was really compelled to do the genealogy because I knew I could follow it. Because I knew that my ancestors were there in Mexico for a long time. As a matter of fact, one of my grandmothers was married to a man named Montemayor. Montemayor was the first governor of El Reino de Nuevo León, the first governor of that state. Okay, so I knew that these people were, I mean, they were leaving their homes when they lived in Portugal or Spain, wherever they were coming from, and even from the Dominican Republic and Cuba and those areas, and coming here, they were running from the Inquisition, and most of them died. They didn't come here for a vacation. That would be like you leaving the United States and going and living in the Amazon jungle and taking your wife and kids and knowing that chances of you making it out there are slim to none. These people were forced to do what they had to do to survive. Like I said, they weren't on vacation. They weren't out here running around salivating looking for gold. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. Just like right now, they're trying to do the same thing. They want to change history. So even right now, however misplaced it may be, or whatever they're doing, by tearing down all these statues and getting rid of all this stuff, you're still, which they in themselves may be justified, but they're still trying to do away with the history, whether it's good or bad. I'm not going to argue that, whether it's good or bad. They're still trying to change, and that's what they did back then. They want to change the history. So, they write in this book, well, these Spaniards came here and they were hungry for gold. No, they weren't. They came here because Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, they were living in the greatest country on earth at that time, and they gave up all of that because they were running away from the Inquisition, because they came in with the edict that says either you're going to be a Roman Catholic, either you're going to turn to Catholicism, or we're going to burn you at the stake. Now, which one do you want? You know, so they were forced to do these kinds of things. They didn't come over here and run around in the jungles of Mexico looking for gold. They were running away from the Inquisition.
May I say something, Aki?
Yes.
One of the ways how I find out about the traditions of from my grandma's side was how she would cook, and how I started to connect that to different areas of where we were scattered. And there was even like a recipe of like a fake looking pork that she would make for my grandpa as memory, and there were stories behind why they were doing that.
Right. Right. Just like my mom, she makes yeah, she makes pan sin levadura. She will make us pan sin levadura, which is unleavened bread. I mean, it's right there, yeah. She will make pan de semita, Semitic bread. She will make, she will make all these foods that nobody else made anywhere else in Mexico. But there was what's
only
his name?
certain areas.
Right. There was what was his name? Diego, not Diego de Montemayor. There was a explorer who brought a bunch of Jews here, and that's why, like in Mexico, you understand this. All you who speak Spanish, you ever heard of the saying "Estás bien judío"? Estás bien judío. What does that mean? That means you're such a Jew.
Yeah.
It was a bad. You didn't want to be judío. But these are Jews that that lived there. We have these certain words and these foods. Yeah, because they're ingrained in us from a long time ago. Who's here?
So now, one of the things you mentioned in the beginning, and I quickened to go to the scripture. If any scripture comes to mind, anybody, in the time we're living right now, like the birth pangs of what we're going through right now. When people, it's right in our face, but it's a little premature according to this. But as it says here, and if you go to Matthew Ben Yahu, chapter 24, verse 4, and Yahushua answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one leads you astray, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, and they shall lead many astray. And you shall begin to hear of fightings, reports of fightings. See that you are not troubled, for these have to take place, but the end is not yet." Now, this has been a key of repeatedly through history that has happened. It's not the first time that's happened. You mentioned it before also, where they try to destroy history. They try to genocide races. But it says, for nation shall rise against nation, reign against reign, and they shall be scarcity of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in places. All these are the beginning of birth pangs, and they shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you. And you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. Okay, so now, it says for the name's sake, they'll be hated. Now, the people don't even know his name.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't even know his name. And of course, Christians think that when they get persecuted at work for being a Cristiano and saying the name, the J-man, that they quote this scripture for themselves.
Right.
But it hasn't really happened, the persecution directly to us of Yahuwah. Now, if we're in Israel, we would have direct persecution from the Ashkenazi. You know what I mean?
Right.
The Rabbinical will come against us for speaking the true name of the Father and claiming Yahushua as the Mashiach.
Right. But they really don't. I'm sorry, brother, but let me just say this right now. It's still too early. It's still too early. Let me tell you something.
That's right.
It's still too early. They haven't figured this out yet, but they're getting there. And they did the same thing to the people during the Inquisition, when those Yehudis begin to say, no, you know what? That's not true. This is who the Messiah is, and this is the Besora. This is the Besora. The Besora means the good news, or the story. This is how it goes. His name is not Dios. Dios is not Dios is a Greek deity. Okay, his real name is Yah. Okay, his son's name was not Jesus. His son's real name was Yeshua or Yahushua. You know what I'm saying? So right now, but what do the people who speak English and Spanish, they say, oh no, you know what? No. He knows my heart. I'm just gonna call him Jesus. Okay, I'm just gonna go and say, because he knows my heart. Well, let me tell you something. In Jeremiah, it says that the heart of man is wicked.
Deceitfully wicked.
It's deceitful. The heart of man is deceitful, and above all things wicked, or something to that effect. I can't remember. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what the heart of man is.
Jeremiah 17:9.
Yeah.
17:9.
What does it say?
And it says here, where nation shall rise against nation. People think those are countries, which we know they are.
People.
This is, it says in the Greek, is ethnos, the same word you get ethnic background, a race, a habitation of a tribe, a foreign, non-Jewish race. It says goyim here, Gentile, a heathen nation of people. But it means race shall rise up against race. And this is going on right now.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on right now. That's exactly what's going on.
And it's just the beginning of sorrows. And now, when it comes to the place where we speak the name of Yahuwah and blow the shofar and Yahushua Hashem, and they start beating us down, then we're really being persecuted for his name's sake.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right now, there's a little bit of persecution for pagan names. You know what I mean? When they tear down pagan idols, I clap to it. History.
Right.
But they're doing it with an agenda.
Yeah, but they're doing it they're not doing it for righteousness. They're doing it to fulfill their agenda. That's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They're not fulfilling it for righteousness' sake, but for their own agenda and purpose, which is going to be, they're trying to make a stumbling block for the next election. Yeah. So now, in your travels, when you're,
he had to step away.
Okay,
for just a minute.
I'll save that question when he comes back.
But what you said was Tov. About the best thing to do too with some of the genealogy is talk to your relatives before they pass away. The great grandparents, the grandparents, whoever has information in your family, get that and document it. I videotaped my grandmother before she passed in 2018, and some of the things that she said will help remove further blocks for me in researching our ancestry. So if I choose to go back into that, but that is really important. And then one of the other things is I had a young lady at work come up to me and say, "Oh, hey sister, you're Black Hebrew Israelite, right?" I know it. And I was like, "Well, I am of the House of Yisra'el, yes." So there's this whole, and me and Anayah, we saw something earlier, an interview by someone being interviewed that was part of the Black Hebrews, and they were being asked about, well, why are y'all on the streets doing such and such? And so we know there's this radical Black Hebrew movement, I guess, of the Hebrew Israelites that basically put down every other race except if you're Black or African American or whatever. So just to say that, so I don't identify as being you know, oh, you're part of the Black Hebrews. That no, I mean, to me, I'm just. That's
We're
it.
just
I'm just of the house of
just
Yahuwah.
Israel.
I'm just of the house of Israel. I just believe in Yahuwah.
That's
You
right.
know, so yeah, so because there's a lot of bashing. I mean, you can see them putting down the Black Hebrews, and there's so many divisions even within the Black Hebrews.
That's right.
There's so,
Different,
yeah, there's
different
the
leaders in different states.
yes, really radical. Then there's those who say, no, we love all people, and all people could. So yeah, but so that's and I think, were you telling me about some of them too? It started off as they were kind of linked with Black Lives Matter. I don't know. So there's a lot going on with
What's
all
that?
of this stuff
Right,
that's happening
right,
now between
right.
the Black Hebrews, the Black Hebrew Israelites, BLM. I mean, it's a
Right.
lot of, you know, should we be completely separated? Should we be? But when you're in Yahuwah, Yahuwah's not going to reject you. It's not color. I mean,
But
it's your heart.
the Black Hebrew
Look.
movement did not start out like that. It didn't start out like that. I remember when it had first started out, and I mean they were just reading scripture and stuff like that. But I think that they've been what do you call this? Infiltrated,
Yeah,
and it's turned
yeah.
into something else.
That's
know,
why it's branched
yeah.
off to these other.
Now, Anayah, to get spiritual into it, and then we'll open Midrash. Anybody wants to share anything that when you're traveling around to you're going into places of the 7 Ekklesias of Asian Minor. You're going into places that are the roots of I don't say Christianity, I say the scattering of the house of Israel, okay? The diaspora. And you're going there and you're seeing all these places. Tell us about some things that the Father showed you about the 7 locations that Christians claim to be the 7 churches, but really it was the
Now
7
they're pagan. These are all pagan. Look, let me tell you something. Antifa would have a field day over there because there is a statue on every corner.
Oh,
You
no.
know, they'd be like on holiday over there, trying to tear. It's all paganism. Everything. It's all pagan. There's statues of men, of animals, of demons, of all kinds of stuff everywhere you look. And these things have been there, who knows how long? I'm gonna say hundreds, maybe 1,000 years.
Wow.
And so there's some really ancient places. I mean, I go to a lot of places that I haven't really. I mean, I can just see what's around me because sometimes I don't have time. Sometimes I just land there and then I take off again. And sometimes I stay there. Like in Sofia, I'm staying there. So I can tell you those countries there, Romania, Sofia, Greece, Macedonia, all those countries, they're rooted in paganism, brother. They are literally rooted in paganism.
Now, have you found any Nazarene or any believers there?
No, I mean, I see, I know that there is. Well, there's a lot of
Messianics or
they don't really over there. You really can't. They're all Orthodox. They're Orthodox Christians.
they're Greek Orthodox or
They're
Russian Orthodox or
right.
Coptic?
Most of the population is Orthodox, and then you have a lot of Islam that's moving up into that area a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Muslims are there.
A lot of Muslims are moving
all over.
moving up into that area, but they're going to have a conflict because the people from those areas, they're not. How do you say this? They don't want change. They're not. They're not susceptible to change. They're sticking to the old ways. So like I said, a lot of them are Orthodox, and there's statues everywhere. There's a lot of paganism there. Now there's mosques there, and there is synagogues, big beautiful synagogues. So it's mixed up, but I would say that they're all equally paganized.
All right.
When one of them is not more pagan than the other, they're all the same.
Now, have you ever got the interest or the little cat and nine lives desire to go into any of the rabbinical synagogues there, or you just haven't had time?
Yes. There is a synagogue there that the inside of it is all gold. The chandeliers and the it's been there for a long time, and the dome up on top.
All right.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like a museum. They really don't. They have a service there. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know when they have it. Maybe like once a month, and I guess you have to be part of that community to go in there. But other than that, they charge you to walk in there.
Wow.
So they'll charge you like 7 levs. 7 levs is like $3, $3 or $4 to walk in there and look at it. So I guess that's how they stay afloat.
Yeah. All those, they make them museums, and then it keeps the Muslims from destroying them because they're classified as a museum and not a place of worship. Praise Yah. Now, while you're looking at all this and you're experiencing all that and you're seeing what's going on, rumors of wars, and you're seeing the heat of it, what does the Father have showed you?
Wow, brother, you know what? It's coming. It's coming. We're like I said, that's why I was saying that at the very beginning. When I say it's coming, I'm saying before, look, this is my mindset, that every generation that has ever lived has believed that they were in the last days.
Right.
So me, I didn't believe that until recently.
Okay.
Until very recently, from what I'm seeing that they're doing the same thing over there as they're trying to do here, and that is mix people of different nations together, which is okay. I don't have a problem with that, but they have different cultures and different beliefs, and they're trying to bring people in. You got Chinese and Arabs going into the African nations. You got African nations coming into Europe. Everything, they're all clashing. They all have, to me, they're causing wars.
Right.
They're causing, just like they're causing conflict. And that's what they want. Chaos. That's what they want here. They want conflict.
Chaos, yeah.
And they're going to get it. This nation will fall.
Yeah.
It will. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that's the truth. There has never been a nation that has lasted forever. This one, like all other nations, will fall. And they're in turmoil over there. They are bringing in Islam into these countries that have different beliefs. They're bringing in Orientals into Africa with different beliefs, Africans into Europe with different beliefs, and it's just really confusing. And
I walked in a store, a place to pick up some catering food, and that place did not require masks. If they tell me I have to wear a mask to go in the back of the kitchen, I respect them for that because it's culinary, right? So they wanted me to wait outside and load up my bags in the back and bring my bags. And this is like $500-600 worth of a dinner. And somebody outside tried to say something that I didn't have a mask. I said, "Did you read the sign out the door? It's not required here." So where are you from? What are you doing? You're not from Texas. What are you doing here telling me, you're in my space. You know what I mean? I'm 20 feet from you, and you're trying to tell me to wear a mask. Now, and the Father had me stir up and make a statement. And this was the statement I made. It took 2 years before the Nazi Germans started snitching and ratting on the Jewish Germans for a loaf of bread. But it didn't take 2 months for an American to start snitching on another American with an app on their phone to report somebody without a mask. 2 months. And when I told him that, he just stared at me. He didn't know what to say.
It looks familiar.
Can you imagine that, brother? In parts of the United States, in California, New York, Chicago, probably in San Antonio, not in Dallas, but they have an app. They can report you.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Take a picture of your driver's license and report you. They get money. They get money. They get a Walmart coupon. It was all over the YouTube in California. This lady tried to do that to a guy, and he was on the park with his dog, and there was nobody in sight, and she came into his space with her phone and took pictures and reported them on the app, and she got paid. So, and 2 months to turn on each other. This shows the kind of spirit in the air of persecution that's going to come. Christians have no idea what's going to get them. You know, we know we know what's coming. You know what I mean? More because of the Torah understanding. But as it says here in Matthew 24:10, and then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. And it goes on to all the false prophets. And then in verse 11, it says, and many false Nabi shall rise and shall deceive many. Man, there's so many right now. There's so many of these false prophet liars. I don't even know who they are now, you know, because we haven't been in the circuit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We haven't been in the circuit, and they're on. And I didn't even know Benny Hinn was still around, but he was interviewing some prophet liars, and they're all prophesying in the name of L-O-R-D, G-O-D. They don't even speak for an hour the J-Man's name. Listen to this guy, waiting for him for an hour to say the J-Man. All he says, and G-O-D, L-O-R-D, thus says L-O-R-D, thus says G-O-D wants to tell you. They're prophesying in the name of Baal and Ashtaroth and Moloch right in our face all over again. You know what I mean? And they rose up, and the iniquity shall abound, and the love of many shall wax cold. Because if you love humanity and you love your neighbor in your state, you would never treat and disrespect them that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's just humanity, respect, and love. But the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And that's why I wonder, when I used to do my travels and I seen what was going on, when I went to Venice, Italy, to go teach a German man married to a Spanish Venetian woman, and they took me on tour, and I went to Leonardo da Vinci's museum because I'm very interested in his archives of science, okay? Even though I found out there that some of his female paintings were actually boys. He just dressed them up as girls. And so Michelangelo did the same too. But I liked his museum of weapons, because he had theoretical helicopters, he had submarines, he had, you name it, he already was putting it on patents. But the same thing in Venice. The art there is so pagan. They even got ancient Babylon there. They got the ancient statue of Nebuchadnezzar's son holding a dragon on a leash. And we read that in the book of Yesher.
Wow, yeah.
We read that in the book of Yesher. And so they got the original marble statue they imported to Venice. But Venice was being conquered by the Venetian race is being phased out by the Chinese. The Chinese will come and say to your little boatside, a beautiful cafe, you're selling it for $2 million. We'll give you $3 million. Marry our daughter, and within the next generation, all your children are Chinese, and they're going to inherit everything. You know what I mean? So the Venetians are being taken over for the last 20 years. They've been starting on Venice 20 years ago with the Chinese takeover and buying them out, you know. And the owners just sit there and drink their Turkish tea in the front, and they don't even own the building no more. The Chinese are owning it, you know what I mean? And except the taxi guys with the boats, those guys are like family generations. And but when I seen that, it was totally amazing how they have infiltrated even Venice and parts of Italy. Now, do you see a lot of that in the different countries of China infiltrating also?
Yeah, the Chinese are buying up everything, especially in Africa.
Okay.
Especially in Africa, they're buying up. They're before it was a lot of that stuff was owned by the Brits, but all of the new mines and everything over there and are all there. Those are all Chinese.
Wow.
Yeah, Chinese are buying everything, brother. They are a threat to democracy. I guarantee you that.
Anybody got any questions? Any input of your experiences today to share with both this lovely couple as well as the community? We opened the door for Midrash. Anybody got any questions or any statement?
Well, I have statements I've been holding back.
Oh, great. The door's open, sis.
I did watch 13 videos with you and Anayah talking about the flat earth. So
wow, you survived all 13. You need to get a certificate.
Hallelujah.
Very
few people could survive all 13 videos.
I didn't watch.
Yes, and that's what convinced me. That's what convinced me the 13, because I was, before I watched your videos, I was watching several people. But when I took the time to watch each and every one, you really convicted me. But the other thing I wanted to say is because I sat through those 13 videos, it shows that, there's a lot of unraveling that I had to do with the round earth. So it takes time, even watching the videos, because at first I had heard it a couple of times from other speakers, but they were not very convincing. So when I sat down and just listened, didn't argue in my mind, and just listen to both of you speak about the flat earth and where the doctrine came from and why, then, you have to dedicate, you have to become like a Berean and dedicate the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Correct.
And then I want to match that with the scripture about how the heart is wicked and deceitful and, no man can know it.
Okay.
Well, I want to tie that in with the name because even though I told you Eliyahu on the side, I try to share the name in your videos and some other people videos about the name with a friend that I grew up in a circe together, whose house I'm in right now. And I say to her, well, I don't really see a reaction from you. She said, well, I understand. So then I said, okay, she understands. We have the basic understanding of scripture because what I know, she knows, because it's the same circe system. And in that circe system, they did quote a lot about how deceitful our own thoughts can be and how we should overcome that, right? So there's no way for me to test her. She was saying, I understand. I just have to do the research. And I said, well, I'm giving you videos where they explain it. And, you don't really have, it's not hard for you to do the research. It's not like you have to start from scratch one. So she started saying God in front of me. And then I told her, listen, I don't go by that name anymore. I really don't. So I had to put my foot down because she was saying that she understood. So then a couple of weeks ago, I caught her in her own deceit. And I tied that in with every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. We were in the car and we were talking and it went into religious, spiritual. And she kept saying, the Father. So even though she's heard the name, had it explained to her, she refuses to call him by his name. And we know that in order for us to be saved, we have to call him by his name. So just saying the Father is just not going to cut it.
Good for you.
So I just wanted to give you that example because, you know, I don't go by that name. I don't try to force her to say the name, but because, you know, she was saying it in front of me and it is an abomination because I gave her videos where it says it's an abomination, but you see how the carnal mind, and then, you know, it could be the flip side of it where they will persecute us because they do go by the God. They go by the JC because it's a demon behind those names.
Come on. That's right. Yeah, there's the spell, the God spell, this which spell is upon them. They're under that spell, and they can't get it out of their tongue, you know, unless they renounce it, like we have all renounced it and renewed and washed our mind with the Torah. There's a renewing and the washing of the word. So, so with them, there's no renewing. Now, brother.
So I'm sorry. So it's gonna be a showdown, much like Eliyahu. It's gonna be a showdown because they do not want to give it up because they've prospered under it. They've had advantages. They've like had healings and miracles in that name. But the reason why we're still under the radar is because the Father has not shown those big miracles that are coming in his name yet. He's still preparing us.
Well, a lot of it too is, sister, is that the followers of Yah that lay hands on the sick and cast out demons, we don't like to have a camera on. In Christianity, they'll point to the camera and say, film this while they're doing it. And many of us, Sister Kimahyah and I, we are very familiar that in the evangelical family of ministries, Christian ministries, when they're televangelists, they like to perform in front of a camera and exploit that. For us, we're the reverse. We like the cameras off. You know what I mean? And if somebody films it on a phone, there's nothing we can do about it. You know what I mean? But they like to exploit to get the offerings and the media publicity, and you know, it's all dealing with mammon at the end of the tunnel. Now,
I just want to say something real quick before we go.
Yes, go on.
I just want to say something to Sister Regine. Listen, sister, you know, people cannot, they don't have the love of Yahuwah. So all you can do is tell them the truth, and it's up to them to accept it, okay? Because one day the Father's going to tell them, well, I revealed my name to you. I did reveal my name to you. And, you know, and but they want to be disobedient and hard-headed, even though that they want to be stiff-necked, even though they know that that is not his name, because you have already proved it to them. So they cannot humble themselves. It's a condition of the heart. They cannot humble themselves and say, you know what? All right, what you're saying is true. Let me, you know, they can't bring themselves to do that. No matter what, they must be right. They must be right. Even if it means giving up, even if it means selling the birthright.
Right.
You know.
And Sister Kimahyah, remember, we discovered when Mike was going to sponsor us with the History Channel, and we were trying to get an audition to interview all these top evangelists. Do you recall how many of them, they knew the names, they knew the correct words, but they just settled on not doing it, remember?
Yep.
The leadership knew the names. The leadership studied and knew the name of the Father and the Son. They might be different forms of it, but they did, and they knew the words are pagan, but they just like today. Everybody knows the word Bible is Biblos, a pagan city. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Just like everybody knows in history that all those statues that are over there in Egypt, and they have the face of a black man or a black woman, and they go and they knock off the noses to try to hide so that they can do their own history. We already know the truth.
Part of the deception.
Everybody knows the truth. Everybody sees it. You know, but they continue to perpetrate their lie because they can't accept the truth.
Right.
Well, they have to have control of the history narrative. And I mean, we know now, I mean, the history that you had back in even the 50s, 60s, it's all of it's being changed. Everything, it's all being changed, but it's just part of the deception and the Malachims that are charged with deception in the earth. So eventually it's all going to come to the day of Yahuwah. And
That's right.
I was going to mention that about Isaiah 13, even the context of that. I mean, it's talking about the day of wrath is coming.
Right.
Excuse me.
Anybody else got?
I wanted to interject, HaRuachEliyahu. My pop, with all due respect to him, and I love him dearly, told me he knew the name, and he's a quote unquote bishop in the Christian church, and he said he chose tradition. My mouth hit the floor, and I believe that's what it is. It's a tradition.
Yeah, the lovers of tradition more than truth.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah. And anybody else?
Well, I was going to say that's because you see, they love the lie. See, that's why Yahushua said, look, you're of your father, who was a liar from the beginning. They can't accept the truth. They love the lie because they're from their father, who was a liar from the beginning. So that's why Yah says, I'm going to give them over to their own devices, to their own lies. You know, I'm going to hand them over to that.
He gives them over to their own devices.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, my aunt and uncle, I love them dearly. They're like really in the Christian walk, and we've shared the name and
over and over and over and over.
Just,
I know.
and I've given her
you would think because they pray all the time and they go to church. I mean, you would think that they would get it, but they can't let go of the tradition.
They cannot let go of the tradition. They love the tradition. Yeah.
So yeah, they love the lies, and also it's the pride. When they're in that position, as bishops, deacons, pastors, or evangelists, or they call themselves prophets instead of Nabi, that title position, they love the pomp, the pump of it, the fluff of it. You know what I mean? We were all in it. You know what I mean? We were all in it. The titles, you know, like that movie Braveheart, he said, all this is titles of names, but you're not free. You know what I mean? You're still a slave. So, and that position and those names in that little crowd really pumps up their ego, and they can't let go of it. They just can't walk away like we did and you get to nothing. You know, that we were at the place, all of us were at the place. We were living together, Anayah and Sister Kim. We're all living together because we were financially distraughted, and we had to sacrifice and live together, and in order to start all over again.
Yeah, we have to literally start over.
Ground zero.
From ground zero all up. Give up everything. Yeah. You know, and the big ministry jobs, the big ministry pay, the big ministry names, we just walked away from it. So, and then we started from scratch, and Father built on Yahuwah's foundation, not another man's foundation, but on Yahuwah's foundation. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's hard for them to let go, but there'll be a day of reckoning, or they will be quickened before then to repent for not speaking out and confessing the name like they should have. I believe a lot of them are going to be accountable before they die in that judgment day. You know what I mean?
And the circuit is still alive and well. And even back then, so I saw a lot behind the scenes, saw a lot of the ministers. I mean, Dr. Miles Monroe, Benny Hinn, Paula White, all of them.
Right.
And now I will say, Dr. Miles Monroe, he was a little different. I'm just going to say that from what I saw. From what I saw about him, he was a little different. Yeah. Well, and I don't know how much. Well, I guess I can say whatever. But he was a little different. But you know, in that circuit, in Christendom, they look out for each other. They got each other's backs when, even if they're not quite doing something right, and you know I mean, I saw some things that I was real suspect in a lot of ways, but
yeah, there's a lot of
going on behind the scenes.
Sexual immorality.
Yeah. So,
well, look at like Shambach. Shambach's old school, but he had a lot of stuff that I didn't like about him. But he kept in a tent, and he always read the scriptures. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. He'd always talk about the commandments. You know what I mean? And if you love me, you keep my commandments. And he would always spring that up in his sermons about the commandments. And of course, when everybody else was giving up the Big Ten, he was always sharing about the commandments. You know what I mean? But he did have a good fleecing technique. He loved those big fat offerings and his greasy chicken. You know what I mean? Wow. So, but so some of them had, I believe a lot of them, and a lot of the people we were involved with before, they had, in the beginning, they had sincere hearts, and as mammon came in, and esteem of men, and the limelight, and the bowing to them because their title is a pastor or evangelist or whatever, that puffs up, and they don't want to give it up. You know what I mean? Praise Yah.
Yeah, and just I want to just share too from Matthew 7:13. Just remember, it says, "Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter in through it. Because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life, and there are few who find it." So we are part of that remnant. We are a remnant. So it's like, I think about Anayah's father. We were sitting at the table once, and he was sharing with him about the name and stuff, and he was like, being Roman Catholic, well, how is it that you would have this information, Freddie, and all the Catholic Church is wrong?
No, he said, this is what he said. He said, you mean to tell me that all our grandfathers who ever came before you are all wrong and you're right?
Well, he mentioned the church.
Yeah, but I told him, but not all of our grandfathers that came before us called them the same name you're calling on. That there was truth, but like I said, like just the way the words say, the heart of man is desperately deceit. It says the heart of man is deceitful above all things. Above all things, is deceitful and desperately wicked. So men change stuff to suit their own needs. But
we're on the byway and the path of Yahuwah. So all of Christianity, Roman Catholic Church, all the different denominations. I mean, we're not a part of that. We're not a part of those in that broad way on that.
No, we're not a part of those daughters.
Totally different highway. Yeah.
Praise Yah, everybody. It's good I'm glad to be here with you, and we get to expend this Shabbat together. I know people have to eat their Shabbat meals, rub the tub and grubby, and there's nothing wrong with that. Taking a break, taking a nap, taking a moment to relax, and just to hear and listen and fellowship for Shabbat.